Hello, I'm a 21-year-old guy who, after diligently studying in a provincial area, managed to attend college in New York. It was last year. I didn't want to apply for a dormitory, so I begged my parents to let me live off campus. From what I heard from friends, dormitories often have curfews depending on the school. Just having graduated from high school and eager to embrace freedom, the thought of living with such restrictions felt suffocating. I deliberately missed the dorm application period and told my parents, I can just find a place near school. There are plenty of share houses these days. However, my parents were firm. They acknowledged that it's fine to have fun and enjoy oneself, but reminded me that everything comes with responsibilities. They then insisted, go live with your aunt. My mom is the youngest and very cherished daughter in her family, with 3 older brothers and 1 sister. My eldest uncle is 18 years older than my mom, practically a grandfather figure to me, and is already in his 60s. So our relationship isn't exactly casual. The idea of staying at my uncle's house. My cousin brother has already married and started his own family. He's in his mid-30s, and living with him wouldn't be uncomfortable. So, imagine how awkward it would be for me to live with my uncle and aunt. Honestly, I was grumbling and really didn't like the idea, but there was no other option. It was decided that my parents would send a certain amount of money each month to my aunt, who in turn would provide meals and do laundry for me. A few days before the start of the semester, my parents, who hadn't seen my uncle and aunt in a while, packed my stuff and we all headed to New York together. My aunt had prepared the room previously used by my cousin before he got married. The house was small but duplex, so the second floor was entirely mine to use. There was a separate staircase leading to the second floor, and an entrance I could use on my own. Honestly, I didn't know the house was like this, but seeing it with my own eyes, I thought it might be okay to live here. While I was busy unpacking in my room and looking around the house, the adults were already grilling meat and having a drink in the yard. I quietly joined them, eating without saying much. Listening to their conversation, I realized my uncle and aunt seemed like very enlightened people. My aunt told my parents, raising kids, I learned it's pointless to micromanage them like catching mice. When they want to play, just let them be. We've all been there. She said this with a hearty laugh. Then, looking at me, she said, our David, let's have a good time moving forward. You can even bring your girlfriend home, and laughed uproariously again. My uncle joined in. What girlfriend? He hasn't even started school yet. Maybe by May, adding to the laughter. I was a bit taken aback but felt reassured, thinking, no curfew and they'll respect my space. My parents were worried I might get into trouble, but staying at my uncle's seemed to ease their minds somewhat. After spending a night there with my parents, we returned home. During my stay before school started, my uncle was hardly ever home, busy traveling with friends as a kind of retirement treat for himself. My aunt, a lifelong homemaker, was always home unless she had specific plans. At first, her morning wake-up calls for breakfast felt bothersome, but as time went on, I realized she just wanted someone to share meals and time with. Despite desperately wanting to sleep in, I got up for breakfast. Not wanting to miss the meal she prepared, she was considerate enough to let me sleep in on days I didn't have class. Living there, I even started to feel a connection to my grandmother, whom I hardly remembered. My aunt, though younger than my uncle, was still over 30 years my senior. On days I had no plans, I made sure to eat at home with my aunt. She took great care of me, packing lunches on days I worked part-time. Occasionally, my married cousin would bring his wife and kids over, making for a lively household. College life turned out to be tougher than I expected, but living in a boarding house, I felt like I was experiencing a new adventure. My aunt took better care of me than even my own parents, without any nagging. She would even fold my laundry and put it away in my room. Sometimes, when my uncle came home drunk, he'd give me some spending money, making me think that not moving out was the best decision. One day, I was watching a movie in my room, snacking and drinking a beer by myself. Unaware I was there, my aunt came in to put away laundry. Seeing me drinking alone in the dark, she said, "Why drink alone like that? Come downstairs. I'll make you some snacks." I thought about making excuses for my solitary vibe, but was getting hungry, so I followed her down. She skillfully whipped up some of my favorite dishes, her cooking skills making me salivate. I opened another beer and was enjoying the food when she brought out a bottle of soju, sitting down in front of me. "This is the first time I'm drinking with our David. You're all grown up now," she said. Feeling a bit shy, I responded, "Of course, I'm a college student now." We toasted and shared stories over drinks. My aunt turned out to be much more open and spirited than I thought. We bonded over complaining about my uncle and talking about college life, enjoying our drinks. She laughed throughout, but then sighed deeply and took a big swig of her drink. When I asked if she had any worries, she replied, "It's your uncle. What else?" Thinking it was about his daily outings. I awkwardly tried to comfort her, saying, "He's just retired. He'll find something to do soon." Hearing that, my aunt complained, "That doesn't really matter. But isn't turning your back to sleep a bit too much?" I was startled by her words, and she seemed to catch herself, saying, "Oh my, what am I saying? Pretend you didn't hear that. I'm being foolish." She apologized to me repeatedly, and I reassured her, "It's okay. You must have been really frustrated." There was an awkward silence, and as we shifted our positions, the atmosphere between us started to feel even stranger. My aunt, looking flustered, quickly began to clear the table. I helped her in silence, my heart racing, perhaps due to the alcohol. A few days later, my uncle went on a fishing trip with friends, leaving the house empty for 3 days. I had been feeling uneasy, not having received any clear response from my aunt when she entered my room. As I was about to turn off the light to sleep, we spent time together in the darkness. Even after that, whenever my uncle was away or came home late, my aunt would come to my room. I had a girlfriend, but I couldn't bring myself to refuse my aunt's visits. A year has passed, and this relationship continues. At some point, my aunt began to speak formally to me, even when my uncle was around. I was nervous until my uncle asked, "Why are you speaking formally to David?" My heart nearly stopped. My aunt casually replied, "These days, everyone talks formally to each other." I saw it on TV, especially when we were together. My aunt always spoke to me formally. I didn't mind the strange sense of conquest, and eventually, I stopped caring whether she spoke formally to me or not. On days when my uncle seemed likely to come home early, my aunt would visit me even before dinner time. I worried about my uncle coming home, But my aunt seemed unconcerned. Being young and full of energy, I hardly felt tired, even staying up all night. Lately, I find myself going to the master bedroom first. My hope is to continue living like this, boarding and staying with my aunt.